Live. Oh, I'm alive. Oh. Welcome to another edition of Life is People. Well, tonight's returning guest, and we were just saying before we went live, we tend to have these long, preempted, pre-Life is People conversations. So before we go any further, man, I think it's a bit. How you doing, my man?
Good, thanks, mate. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we're really good. When we were just saying before we went live, man, and I think it's something we kind of discussed in the last public conversation. You wanted to sort of mention about money and the music industry, and I know it's something that I kind of really wanted to sort of talk to you about, because I think there's a synergy between what we both do on this, but from different angles. So, I mean, what I'm really fascinated to you, and maybe sort of background, again, for people maybe hearing this or listening for the first time, I mean, you've had quite an experience, obviously, by yourself, solely. You've been out with Coast, and you've been out with, same before we went live, you played there in front of Kaiser, you've been out with Kaiser Chiefs and played some, some big venues and stuff like that. So you're someone who maybe, for many people who are, in the music industry or even just starting this off, we live in a world where, as you know more than anyone else, anybody can. It's almost very simple now just to put something up on live, and there's many platforms you can put you. So I think to get your music across is probably easier than it was 20 years ago when I was maybe in a band, which was all about making cassettes and actually having to make physical hard copies and send them out physically. So that's all changed. But equally, there's the goal, which has always been there, about how to turn this from just being, for want of a better word, enthusiastic amateur to an actual professional. And that's something you've made that step and you've made that breach. So I'm fascinated really to know really kind of some of the lessons you've learned and some of the advice and what maybe you can sort of illuminate people maybe listen to this and starting out on the journey.
Aye, yeah, no, absolutely. There's an interesting saying that I heard somewhere. I think it could have been my guitar player, actually, Finley Wells. He talked about the current. Oops, you still there?
Still there.
Yep, cool. He talked about the current state of music with the internet and everything, and that it's never has it been so easy to get your music out there, but so difficult to be seen. Just because, especially if you're an independent person doing it, it's such a huge pond, and as you said earlier, anyone can get some music out there. Anyone can get a piece of music out there, and get it on the internet and share it around, do the whole iTunes thing and yada yada yada. But to actually stick out in some way, it's really hard. It's really hard, and it almost seems now that the only way you can really get your music across, it doesn't even have to be great music. There has to be some kind of gimmick, with it. It has to be, some kind of angle with it. Otherwise, no one's really interested. It could be great music, but that's just great music. So yeah, it's kind of a tough world at the moment with that. But then again, at the same time, it's also really easy, especially to record music and get it out there. Anyone can get a MacBook, download some free samples and some loops and write a hit song, write a hit track, get it out there. And some people have done that and to great sort of financial success with it, And I suppose the ultimate question for me, do I think that's a bad thing or a good thing? I don't really know, to be honest with you. I guess I've never really made music to become a millionaire or to become, really famous or anything like that. It's never interested me in that way. All I've ever wanted to do is just do my best to try and make good music. That's all, and even that goes down to being is subjective. What some people describe my music as being brilliant, and some people describe it as being SH1T. So it's all subjective, and what people are willing to pay for it. To be honest with you, yeah.
I mean, on that very point, my friend, and I think that's a fascinating area you mentioned, because I think one of the things that has been kind of a consequence of what you just spoken upon about that need to be sticking out, have a kind of how can you say it? Like nature does, you know, the idea of the bright red frog in the jungle. It's there to sort of, you know, let people know that it's there. And it's like you said, in music it's happened, and it's happening the same in the arts. And you can argue all across all the artistic, you know, sort of fields and creative fields. And what it's led to is this. I don't know, man. And I think it's led to this. It's led to the world we live in now. That's great for some people, but I use the analogy, man. I mean, and again, this is just being very subjective and generally, but it's like if you're the world is almost as it is right now. It's set up. If you're great, if you're a teenage girl, it's brilliant. I mean, all your music's for you, all the films are for you, all the TV's for you. Everything's been laid out for you because it's been sunk down to that most thing. So then, like you said, on the other side, you've got to be really almost showy, but then it becomes this whole race, as I've always seen it, man, and I don't want to sound snobby in this because I haven't got that mindset, but it's almost like it becomes a race to the bottom. So everyone's just who can outdo each other in. I speak in the art world. It's all about who can do out each other in the most controversial or the most, and that's all it becomes. You lose the element of what you spoke upon about the joy of making. Out of your mind, you put into a physical form, whether it's music or paint or whatever it is, and the act of creation and expression goes out the window in the race to the bottom, just to, you know, put the most controversial stuff up. And it's led to this is my point, what I want to discuss with you, where the creative people now, and I've had this discussion, which leads to the question to you. I mean, in relation to making money, you know, making a living and trying to be a musician. You know, it kind of leads to a dual question. I mean, a duality. Are what we do as creative people, is what we're doing a product, or are we just there for a service?
Depends what you want to get out of it, really. A lot of music. I mean, if I look at me personally, I create my music, and I could leave it at that and give it away, you know, and do that, you know. But in order to make it financially viable, in order to live from it, because that's obviously what I strive for, then I have to turn it into some kind of product and apply some kind of branding technique to it. Otherwise, people just don't get it, because it's, well, great music. What's that? You know, what is that? You know, lots of people make great music. Why should I buy your music over somebody else's, whether it's good or not? You know, it's one of the other problems is that the attention span is so small now because of this digital age. People just want everything instantly, and there's no sense of, you know, kind of working for it. Do you remember the days when an album would come out and if you didn't quite have enough money, you'd have to save up a bit, and then you buy the album, and that could even be a CD. I'm not even going back as far as vinyl, you know. And you buy your CD, you open it up, and then you've got all the text in there, and it's tactile. You can feel it. You put it on, and you play it, and it's really, really cool. And you hear it in its entirety, track one all the way to the last track. And now it's people are pick and choosing because the attention span is so limited, and it's like, well, I just want to hear that track, that's all. And then people are picking skip tracks before the song's even finished, you know. And it's like, wow, the whole idea of an album now is you know, only to some people is still exists, you know. Most people just want the track, and they want it now. And digital downloads, you know, that's another thing that's taken a massive fall. You know, people think our CDs are out of the way, which they are, you know, but the biggest thing that's taken the massive hit is digital downloads, because nobody wants to own it. That's another point. There's so many angles to this, Tim. You know, the ownership of music. That's another thing. You know, the generation that were pretty much born with iPhones in their hands, they have no concept of owning music. Why would they want to do that? You know, it's on tap. They can get it for free mostly, and yeah, I suppose I might need to go over your question again, because I got so many different strings off this thing that I keep going on to. I end up losing myself sometimes. I do apologize.
No. I mean, I think this is the very nature of this whole discussion, because I completely concur with you, my friend. I think, yeah. I mean, one of the things that got me completely into, you know, and I completely personal story. I mean, I was 11 and 12 and stuff like this, and you know, I was just absolutely inspired by everything I did. I wanted to become an artist because of record labels. I mean, I remember being just picking up the first Iron Maiden album and then thinking, like, wow, I wish I could do that. That's what I want to do. I don't want to do an architecture. I don't want to do working down in a factory. That's what I want to do. And there was a thing about that, like you said, the whole. And do you know what it was, man? It was the same sort of element of what we have in sport, and it was that communal thing, as you said, because it was a whole almost ritualized. It wasn't just a case of having, you know, like I say, a physical product that had a piece of artwork that you could take home and you could open it up and read the words and, you know, the actual putting a vinyl and all that. But it was almost the whole thing about, this is something else that's, I think you tapped into. And I think that's why I mentioned about, you know, do we produce or are we servicing? I think this whole almost push in the last 20 years to make us just people of service. We're just up there almost, for want of a better word, we're just performing monkeys for people. Just go out there, play us a tune, play us a piece of artwork. We're just not, you know, I think that's, the difference was, like, and again, one of the things that's been thrown out the back, the whole bathwater with this, and again, I don't know how much different we are as human species. I mean, you mentioned just, I mean, again, I'm diverting a bit, but you mentioned about oh, you know, we live in this age of everything wants to quick and stuff like that. And I hear this constantly, and I think, okay, maybe we are. Maybe all the evidence is showing us, but are we really that different from what we were 20, 30 years ago? I'm not sure. I don't know whether we're just all being pushed in this direction or nudged in this direction. And actually, are we that much different from what we were 20 years ago as human species? I don't know. I think in many ways we are, in many ways we're not. But going back to it, one of the things that's been lost in all this, like I say, the idea of we're just service and stuff, and like you say, instant gratification and instant satisfaction, was one of the things that I remember back in the day with, you know, again, was the idea of, not like you just said, not only having a CD which you knew the band would play from beginning to end. They made the whole creation of the album, but it was also the first time you heard this. I remember hearing albums. It was the very first time you heard anything of this new, what was going to be on that, from this band. Whereas now, everything's put out, put out. And this idea, like you said, because if you don't, you get lost, because you have to be constantly feeding this, as we're told, this unbelievable satisfaction and craving everybody has for instant. So there's a lot of stuff that's been lost. But I don't know. I wanted to go back to all this, because I think one of the reasons, and I hear this all the time, particularly what I'm doing, people are like, well, yeah, but you're not going to get, why should people pay for stuff anymore? Why is that's all gone? Stuff like this, and why we've got this culture of everybody wanting downloads and free stuff and stuff. But equally, when we break it all down, like you said, I want people like you to exist. I never liked it being come to my life that we should have the idea that people like yourself, who are really, you know, proficient and good at what you do, should just be left to the whims of a middleman in a record company who then's like, well, Paul's not being controversial this year, and I think his haircut isn't in with the fashion, so drop him and get it. And that shouldn't be left. This is the idea of, I think too much of this debate has been put into like, well, it's all record companies, it's all these corporations, so hey, we're just getting our own back, and hey, the man, you know, hey, we're putting the finger up to the man. But equally, we've got to, as the audience, as the people who consume, for want of a better word, this music, who enjoy it, who makes all the things that we do, we've got to go, okay, if we want that to continue, then we've got to pay tribute. We've got to put some resources into the hands of people like yourself, and that's almost a kind of a flip side of this argument. Everything's always about the middlemen and record companies, and I think a lot of it comes back to us as individuals and thinking, if we want good art, if we want, you know, good music, we want good films, maybe we as the I've got to go and dig in deep in our pockets and put some hard-earned resources and some cash into people like you. And then the difficult problem is, how do we do that? And that's where we get into the world of patrons and how much they cut and how much all these platforms are all taking their little cuts. Sorry, man, that's a very long-winded road, but I see what your thoughts on what I've just said.
Well, you know, you talk about cutting out the middleman, so to speak. One thing that I've been thinking about this for about 6 months, and I just started to put it into action a couple of days ago. We've got a thing now on the Coast website called Coast Stream, and basically what it is it's like our own Spotify. Now, if you think, you know, you got 100 people on Spotify paying $10 a month, and they can stream whatever they want, you know, and Spotify are getting, you know, $1,000, you know, the artists, you know, compared to the amount of streams that come in, the artists get something like 0.001. It's so minute, it's pointless, you know. Absolutely pointless. But yeah, all these people are signing up, they're paying for their premium accounts, and they're paying Spotify their $10 a month now. All the millions of people that are doing that to stream music, while the artist is getting absolutely nothing, because that's the only media now really in which music is available. Well, not available, but the easiest way in which it's available, and the most widely used media to, you know. And, you know, I've been thinking a long time over this. I'm thinking, well, you know, I'm lucky because I've got dedicated supporters that will buy my music. There's also a lot of people that listen to my stuff that just want to stream it, you know. So their money is going into Spotify and Deezer and people like that, and they're able to access my music, but I'm not really getting anything from it. So what we've done is we've started to develop our own kind of Spotify, really. So we set up a page on the website called Coast Stream. Everything is on there. Now, it's completely focused on supporters of Coast, fans of Coast, you know. So they pay the $4.99 at the moment a month, and they get access to all our music. And it's all they get is just our music at the moment. But it means, I mean, we've already had people sign up to this, and it means now that Spotify isn't getting that money. So the people that would normally stream our stuff are coming to our website, and we're now getting that money, which will help make another record. Now in the future, this is really cool because it means that we can start pulling stuff back from social media and stuff back from Spotify, you know, companies like that. So in some way, we've kind of retained some of the power. I mean, it's not enough to make a difference yet, but because it's all in early beta stages. And I'm currently talking with someone about building an app, a Coast app, where you can, because it's all going to end up on mobiles anyway. So you log into your Coast app, you can stream all our music, you know, and podcasts, doing monthly podcasts as well, you know, which basically gives another reason for people to join up or subscribe to Coast Stream. And, you know, you've got to find somewhere future-proofing your business or your product. You know, my product is Coast. The branding is the product, and the product is the branding, and that it all just, it's all part of the same, you know, another cog in the same part of the machinery, you know. And I think doing it that way, I'll probably end up even introducing my own music into that app as well eventually, and people can just get it all from that. So all the people that subscribe, that, you know, the business then gets the money rather than some multi-million-dollar corporation like Spotify, and the band can carry on. sure, it's not going to make as much money as Spotify because we don't have all that music on there. It's just our stuff, you know. But at least then, you know, a big multi-million-dollar corporation isn't taking all our money. At least it's going straight to us, which will enable the band to carry on. It puts power not just back into the band's hands, but into the hands of the fans, because they know that their money is then being spent onto getting more music to them from the band that they love, you know. And I think that's one way of looking at it to go forwards, you know. I mean, I had a conversation with a friend of mine the other day about it, and he was saying, well, it's all, even Spotify has to change at some point, because, you know, the record companies want to make money, and they're not going to make much money from that. So they're going to have to find a new way of doing it. Otherwise, there's going to be no one left to do it, and no one will make music, you know, or no one will make music to, you know, to earn a living. So all the good musos will kind of go a lot more kind of not quiet, but they'll withdraw everything from that world. A bit like what we're doing with Coast in some ways, you know. People will find us, you know, we're sure about that. We go out and we play. People will find us, but it just, you know, I think a lot of people underestimate the power of exclusivity, you know, especially in this world. And that exclusivity is something that we feel that, especially our fans, you know, Coast fans, is something they deserve, you know, rather than having to trudge through all the pish and garbage that's you know, not saying that other people do it's garbage. I don't mean it in that way. I just mean, like, you know, there's lots of good stuff out there. There's equally lots of bad stuff, and you have to siphon through it. And, you know, I think a lot of people would appreciate it just to go direct. They know that their money is going into the hands of the artist, which means that they in return will get another record and the band can carry on. It's that simple, really.
Yeah, I mean, my friend, what you just spoken upon has been something I've contemplated for many, many, many years of my life. And I'll give you a personal one. I'm old enough to remember when in '94, when the internet came along, I thought everything you just spoken about how we could take control back out of the hands of, you know, these big industry, you know, the big record companies and stuff. I thought '94, the internet, this is going to do this, because we're going to have instant communication directly between, you know, person to person, no more middlemen. And I thought in '94, but it didn't happen. So yeah, man, I've been thinking about this a long time, and I think the synergy, what you just spoken upon, I kind of, when I saw what was going on, particularly in, you know, and with what's going on with the, you know, technology at the moment, and how everything is a general two fork path where we're going as humanity. There's a centralized world, which we see everywhere. You know, corporations, governments, all this are just on this power grab, and they're just trying to take as much power on every level, whether it's, you know, actual money wise, you know, control over us as human beings, even our thought, all that. There's that one fork in the humanity where there is, and there's the other side, which is decentralization, and it's where all the technology is coming from, and all the things that are connecting us are all coming from that vibe. What I do notice about this, like anything else, it's, again, I think it's one of the, I have to say this, I think right now we're living in Renaissance, and I don't think many people realize it, but the people that are most putting their into technology are all understanding this be decentralized. And then you realize that, okay, this is going to be the potential that people could tap into of having, like I said, it could have been back in '94. And that was a drive behind everything you just said, my friend, and everything that you were actually illuminating upon and eruditely speaking upon was all the things that I've been thinking for a long time about how we can just, like I said, break down the middlemen. And this is where technology and decentralization are going to come in. And what you just spoken upon, my friend, this is exactly how I see things, because one of the, you know, and I don't have to speak about N99. I'm not going to speak about it a lot tonight. But one of the point about it is why it's called Network 99 is to take exactly what you just said. Then yourself taking all that you just spoken about, taking the power back to yourself as a band, taking it, you know, it all goes directly in, and then just spreading that out. And for instance, even the reason I call it N99 is the idea that what we just say 99% of the cryptocurrency or the token that's earned by the that's going on goes back. And this is one of the things as well. This is what I've been saying for a long time. People need to understand, particularly musicians, about there's a whole world right now of cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, all these ways of where you can just take control back and have as many resources coming into your sphere as possible. And this is the whole idea of, I think, where things are, I think things are going is exactly what you said. That people, the creative, have got to take their own control back. Go, okay, we've got our little set of tribe amongst us, and then that's great because we can, like I said, you can almost self-support yourself in a small way. But if you could hook that into a greater network, and then have loads of other people on the same thing, and then you get into the world of like where I am in 99 dude. It's all about signaling. It's all about just letting people know where are people, and then building this network up from the bottom. And this is the greatest time. And this is why I say this, my friend. And I'm interested into your thoughts on it, because as much as you were saying about how it is a struggle and all the idea of people taking down the streamline, I think this is my personal reflection. I think right now we have a very short window of opportunity where, like I said back in '94, where right now, like I say, Spotify haven't woken up to this. Right now, that we're on an edge of things, and I sit here to this day, and I can't believe right now there's not Spotify and all these have all jumped upon this and thought, well, the future is going to be about people doing, currencies for themselves and working out ways of funding themselves through, non-fiat money. And I'm surprised that none of these have got, Spotify companies have thought about this. But the fact they haven't means we've right now, us creative people, we've got an edge. Because we can jump into this pool right now and shape it. And this is what I'm trying to, I fly the flag to people and say, look, we can either sit back like my generation did. My generation sat back, we had the internet given to us, and 5 years later, all voting Tony Blair and all going to Iraq. And it's like, well, whatever, man. We all sat back and became lazy. Right now, the creative people have got, because we're the ones, we understand it fully. We live our lives in it completely. We've got this ability, like you said, you can have conversations about people about building apps, and then it's just connecting people and going, wow, we can do this right now. It's like, this is what infuses me so much. It's like being back in the Enlightenment times, or back in just after Gutenberg's press has been invented. You think, oh wow, right now we've got the ability to go out and print loads of stuff without any going through the scribes, without going through the middlemen. And right now, nobody knows about it. There is no such thing as a newspaper industry. There's just us and the machine. And this is the inspiring point of where we are right now. So I think you're absolutely right, man. I know it's a long-winded way of me saying I completely concur with what you said, and I think all I'm saying is I think there's more and more tools coming, and more platforms are going to be coming over the next few years. That's just going to make this more and more easy. But I think what I wanted to really highlight, and I think was so illuminating from what you said, was the idea of it all breaks down to, which is one of the elements of being creative, is that you've got to take the step yourself. We can't, as creative people, just sit back and go, oh, well, somebody over there is going to build something for us. It's that whole process, and which was so inspiring what you said about you've got to step up and do it yourself. And it's jumping into worlds we know. I don't know anything about, if you asked me 5 years ago about coding or programming, to this day I still don't know. But that's a great thing. That I don't know is exactly the same as when I stood in front of, like you probably did when you sat in front of the piano for the first time. And I don't know, how did Rachmaninoff get this out of this? But you learn, and that's the step-by-step process. And that's that was the most inspiring thing I think you said about in your little piece earlier on. It's that whole you've got to take that brave step and go, okay, well, we've got the opportunity. What do we do with it?
Well, totally. And, one of the big problems there's so many, this is a real heartbreaking thing, because there's a lot of really great musicians, like really good musicians, far better than people like me, who are not doing as well as me, and who are also giving up the ghost. The problem is, it's in order to make this work, you have to let go of the old models, and if you don't, you just you'll end up not earning any money, not being able to make it work. And there's a lot of bands that just like, oh, we can't make this work, we can't get enough money from gigs, we can't, we put a single out there, we've had to practically give it away on iTunes, and even nobody wants it for free, and it's like, no, it doesn't work that way anymore, It doesn't work that way. So you've got to develop new ways and interesting ways of making it work. And looking at the Spotify thing, you know, I understand how it works. I understand that the younger generation don't understand the concept of owning music or feel they should ever need to. You know, fine, no worries. But that's only because music is available to them, you know. And you have to put a value on things, you know. I mean, Coast, we put a value on our music because we believe in it. We spent a lot of time on it. We love what we do. There's a lot of love in our music, and you know, so therefore people have happily consumed it. They bought it, you know. They bought into it. They bought into the whole idea of it, and that's really cool. And those are our loyal supporters. You know, they've supported us for every album, and you know, blah 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 blah. That's really cool. And now at the same time, we need to be not in the time, not of the times. I'm trying to think what's the right phraseology for this, but like kind of not, you know, observing the crowd but not being in the crowd, if that makes sense, you know. So we have to keep up with the times but don't be part of it, if that's a better way of looking at it. And by doing our own streaming thing, I feel that we're future-proofing what we do in a way that a lot of bands probably haven't even thought about doing. Well, you know, Spotify's out there, that's what we need to do because that's where people go. And it's like, no, that's where people go who spend their money, and their money goes to Spotify, you know, not you as the artist. So make another Spotify, you know, just do it yourself and take these steps in order to future-proof your product, because otherwise you just end up getting swamped and sucked under and basically bought out, you know, out of the game, basically. And you know, there's a lot of pros and cons to all of this as well. I completely understand that. It's not as cut and dry as just, you know, doing A, B, and C. I understand that. And even the thing that we're doing is in a very, very early kind of beta testing stage. And, you know, I mean, it's cool because, you know, we've had quite a few people sign up to our streaming thing already, and it's obviously working. We've had no complaints yet. But I think the real fun will come when we start making it more personalized. See, that's the other thing that people don't understand, you know. The age of the rock star is dead. You know, being this kind of person that isn't really, you know, accessible, you know, that's gone now. You know, you've got to be accessible to people, and you got to invite them into your world, and you've got to let them in some ways, you know, have a little bit of control on it, you know, because they're the people that are paying your wages. It's like the Patreon, you know. I mean, I do a video every single month called the Composer Diaries, and I basically video everything I do during the day, other than going to the toilet. You know, I video everything of what I'm doing as my day is writing music, and you know, that has become quite a big part of my income. You know, that's a wage for me, you know, which I get every month because I allow people to see what I do and how I record and make music. They get music at the end of every month from what I've done, plus, you know, a 20-minute video of, you know, kind of a day in the life of a composer, you know. And even that sometimes can be hard to do because, you know, I'm not really that exciting, you know. So you got to always, even then, find new ways of presenting it, you know. But yeah, so you've got to do these things, you know.
Well, mate, I just want to quickly jump in on that one because this is a divergence in this conversation, but I feel I can't not sort of jump in and say something. When you said about like you're doing the whole day, and I think this is an absolutely fascinating vein about the creative element that's very rarely spoken about, that people love to watch and see the process happening. I do. I find nothing more fascinating than just watching, like, you know, let's say watching your day as you compose. watching other artists and how they go through. And I think the idea of, this is why I wanted to jump in on this, man. I don't think we have to jump around anyone's horses and cart's eyes. The creative process we do is what it is. It's like it's like kind of going to a car mechanic and going, look, dude, I want you to fix the car, but oh no, but I want you to do that in a tutu while dancing to, you know, Donna Summer. And it's like, no, it's a methodical process. It's what you do when you're making. I watch your videos when you're doing building up your model collection. Not because it's like you've got, you know, purple hair and it's like you're talking about the, you know, the latest whatever issue in the world. It's because I'm watching the process, and that's my interest. And I think this is one of the things that creative people, it goes back to what I was trying to allude to earlier on. We've almost become programmed in this world where we feel like we've got to, as I said before, we show people for other people. We've always got to feel we've got to put, you know, that little bit of sparkle on it, that little bit of, you know, to keep people interested. And I think it's the other way around, because we've been almost programmed to say, or people expect that. And then what you were saying, like, you know, people are paying your wages. They are completely paying your wages, but they don't pay your wages like they don't pay my wages or do anything other than to do what you do. It's that's the difference. And if someone did come along and said, well, I'm not going to pay you any money unless you do play Donna Summer and dress up in a tutu while you're creating music, you'd be like, well, hey, that's not what I'm about. And then and the trouble with that, dude, and this is where it gets really quite deep, is I think all true creativity, and that's what we're trying to allude to, what we're actually trying to get across, comes from the free, open mindset where you don't feel you're being constricted, and you don't feel like, oh, you know, because what happens is you start to self-censor. And this is the world we live in at the moment, where everyone's self-censoring. So I just wanted to jump in that little point. I had my 2 pennies, man.
No, you're absolutely right. You know, self-censoring is the absolute thief of creativity, you know. And the magic happens really when you're just doing your thing, you know. You just do your thing. I mean, quite often now, you know, I'll sit at the piano and I'll just put the thing on record. I'll play away and then you forget about it. That's the best thing. You forget that you're recording yourself, and then you just start playing away. You come up with some melodies and things, and sometimes, you know, I'll come up with something really nice, or even something that's good to use in one of my Patreon videos. You know, just writing away, getting things wrong. That's another good thing. You know, a lot of people think that it's just, you know, you go into the recording studio, you play your music, and it's like first take, bang, and it's all great. And it's like, no, it's not like that at all. Not unless you're Karen Carpenter, you know. And I'm certainly not like that. You know, it takes me, you know, doing a vocal, it takes me flipping days, you know. You just do one vocal, going over it again and think, oh, that word doesn't sound quite nice. That one's out of tune. Fortunately, there's things to fix a thing that's out of tune every now and again, which is good. But, you know, it's like, you know, I don't like the way that note has been sung, the you know, the P at the beginning or the T, and it's, everyone expects perfection now, so you've got to go over it and over it again. And actually, when, you know, I mean, doing vocals, I hate recording vocals. I really do. I'd rather just have a microphone and sing in front of an audience. You know, that's where I love singing. But doing it in the studio, it's horrible. You know, I don't feel comfortable at it at all, because I get way too analytical and too self-critical. It's just like, oh, nasty, cold experience. Aye.
No, you're right, my friend. This is the you know, sort of like, so not to sort of deviate this too much from the idea, because I think it stemmed from the idea of, like you said, you've got your coast kind of tribe, for want of a better word, that are supporting you and stuff like this. But again, ultimately, those people that are supporting you are wanting you to be yourself. And I think what's really important, and I think this is one of the other side of what we're discussing, and I think these consequences always do arise when you have these discussions. It's like you said, we live in this world where everything's just given to people, and people expect, you know, always think that everything's perfect, like from the get-go. Let's put us back to what you're saying, you know, mentioned about your own, you know, you're building your own sort of like Spotify, for want of a better word. You know, yeah, these are beta things. You know, the people, they will, as you said, when you're trying anything in a creative sphere, it's all a process of learning, and sometimes there's you know, what you start off with it in your head and how it ends up. And these are all the steps along the way that have almost been forgotten in this world, where it's just people are just giving a shiny product at the end. And I think one of the troubles with it, again, I don't want to get sort of too deep on this, but I think the trouble almost that's been the consequence that's led from this, where everything is just produced as shiny new, there's the end product, is it becomes too much of a gap, especially in this world. So for instance, say it's into music. So like we started this conversation off, we live in a world right now where everybody can put out a thing on SoundCloud or Spotify, etc., 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 and they're all living in a world, and they, you know, and maybe they're a lot, for a great majority of them, that they're doing it thinking, okay, I want to become like Beyonce, like Taylor Swift, and the trouble is, because they're just given this end result of what Taylor Swift is, which is, hey, I don't know what she's a musician or anything else, but the end product becomes almost like a too high a bar for anybody to reach, and in this world where everything's for free, because they don't understand that Taylor Swift is just there's been a whole team behind her, and she's just the show person for it. Like the real truth, that's what I'm saying, is pulling back the curtains and saying, this is the real truth of this dude. It's a day where I sit around and from the outside of it, you're thinking, he's not doing very much. He's not doing very much. But this is it again. It breaks again down to the real lived experience, which we've lost in this world. A lot of it, dude. I mean, again, I've done the same sort of thing with my painting one. I've put, just streamed it along, and a lot of it, and this is a thing that's been thrown away. There's a whole element of life of just sitting back and thinking. And people go, oh, you're not doing anything. And it's like, yeah, but this is what I'm saying. It's all the process, which needs to be illuminated in this world. Because, as I said before, the danger we've got, the consequences we've been left with, is like you said before, everybody can stream everything. Everybody thinks they can reach it. And nobody's understanding the actual process that's along that way. And you're going to stumble. You're going to fall. And if you are honest with that, as you should be with everything in life, if you're honest with it, then people will support you more. I'm sure the people that use your app on, with the Coast one, or like we do with N99, they're not going to jump down our throats because it's like, oh, this is not perfect as it should be. They're like, no, we understand. We because you've been honest with us, and we're supporting you through the process. We don't want you to change. We don't get that, and that's what I think is really, really inspiring. And we need more and more and more of, and that's hence the reason I think more and more creative people need to understand. We need to find ways to illuminate this and step up ourselves, because that's, in a world where we're facing more and more complexity. Now, I don't want to sort of diverge this conversation too much, but this world is going to get more and more complex with the rise of AI and all this sort of stuff. We can't afford just to sit back and like I said before, and not be honest and not be truthful about the processes and what it's all involved. Because not only are we doing disservice to ourselves and future generations, but we're also taking a part of the joy about what it's like to be a human being, which is what you said. At times, it's like when you get on the bike for the first time. You don't expect to get on a bike and ride, half a mile without falling off. You're going to fall off. You're going to bang your knees. That's all part of the joy of life. And I think it's in this world where we've lost all that, the scraping of the knees in a metaphorical way is what we all need to go through. It's part of the actual experience. And if you don't have that, you almost don't. You become this, like you said, a blandness arises from that idea of not having to scrape your knees, and I've just got to get on that bike and just perfectly do a Tour de France and win it. It's a kind of mentality one, which I think it's kind of like a side effect of what like you said, what we're doing and illuminating, which I think is really inspiring.
Dead right. Yeah. Going on about, you're saying about, people hurting the knees and, getting cuts and bruises and things along the way. I kind of call it the X Factor generation, and I mean, I stopped watching X Factor and The Voice and stuff just because, to me, all it is, it's just about TV. I think Simon Cowell just wants, if I've heard that from someone who knows him, all it is, he just wanted to create good TV. It's nothing to do with music, really. And like, that you see people going on there, and they've gained a bit of confidence with doing some singing because they've been told that that they're good and they should do it, but then they've set their sights to being superstars and millionaires and stuff, and you see them when they get their first See, that was always the comical side of it to me, when you know these people have not been through the manure, they've not scraped the knees across the floor or had any cuts and bruises, and they get their first bit of critique from someone like Simon Cowell or whoever else is on the panel, Sharon Osbourne or someone, that musical pioneer, and they get their first bit of critique and they're completely shattered. They're absolutely, it's the end of they're out of the game as far as they're concerned, and that's the problem, because then you at the other side of the coin you get people who's in the same situation, but then they get all of a sudden they're catapulted to fame overnight, and psychologically that's going to mess you up big time, big time, and that's another thing that I just didn't agree with. It's just I couldn't get on with that show. So what people don't see is I guess people don't know how to these days. They don't really know how to test for authenticity. A lot of people think that just because somebody's famous and because they're on the TV, that must mean they're good, and unfortunately it's really not. I think most intelligent people can work out that popularity is the very hallmark of mediocrity, but to the vast majority of people that they're being sold to, if it's famous, that must mean it's good, and unfortunately that's not the way it works. And a lot of these people, especially those people that are giving up and stuff, they've been through the manure, and it's really hard for them, really is. And some of them their music never gets to see the light of day. That's why I consider myself lucky, because I've got people that buy my music. I'm able to go out there and play, and hey, I've even played stadium-sized gigs, and that's great. That's something that I'm really pleased with, and that was a goal achieved. Would I want to be chased down the street every day with people ripping my clothes off and having an autograph? Truthfully, no, I'd hate it. I really would not. It's for somebody that likes to be adored, and then good for them. But I just I really don't need that kind of stuff in my life. A bit more money's always nice, but I don't think it would change me as a writer. I'd still be writing the same stuff now and enjoying it just as much. Hey, maybe it's best if I don't end up being a bit more happy in the financial department. It will keep the hunger there.
Well, I think what you just spoken upon then, and was a whole sort of thought process in the behind, like I say, in N99, and I thought about that very element you just spoken of, and I think it's the way it breaks down to is you need a method of signaling, and it's not just like you said on who can have the most, for instance, downloads or numbers that have been streamed or etc. Because, and again, it shouldn't not be that. It's all about signaling. It's like, okay, someone's sold 1 million, or they've had their stuff streamed 10,000 times. Great, let's signal all that. But I've on a very short one, I kind of thought, okay, what you need is some sort of, I've called it like an order of merit. You need a way of people like almost gaining ranking belts for different categories, so they can be signaled across, like I say, a community of whatever, and say, okay, we know Paul, say for instance yourself or myself or whatever, any band X, they may have sold, had X amount of this track or that track have been streamed, and I can see where they are on the charts for this. But equally, okay, how have they received on maybe things like how many likes have they liked, how many people have given them good comments, and you can signal it across a whole range of things, and you get kind of a more of an overview of somebody's what they are as a person. So, for instance, I completely concur with you, I'm more the other way. I mean, I don't know whether it's a very much a muso thing, but I spend my life searching for musicians who are not known. I mean, some of the people I've often said this. I mean, one of the greatest people I hold very few people in the pantheon, but one of them was Sean Smith. Now, Sean Smith was from Seattle. He's for bands like, you know, Brad and Seattle and Satchel and stuff like this.
Yeah.
And you know, back in the day, the 90s, you know, you can find him on YouTube, and you'll see some of his more, for want of a better word, commercial stuff will have, you know, absolutely hit, you know, thousands of views on YouTube. And I know he's not making any money from this, but the point being is, in the general consciousness, I know how man, the amount of interviews I read, and musicians are like, oh yeah, he wrote this track, or he inspired this. Greg Alexander's another one. I mean, there's so many of these people who are like this, and they're kind of not known to the general populace. And like you said, maybe like yourself, you're on the one. There's no desire for money. There's no desire for fame. But equally, why should they be unknown? I mean, it's one of the frustrations I've always felt. Why, dude? I kind of dropped this cross, this crucifix of my life a long time ago. The idea of, I mean, I was brought up, especially being an artist, of like, well, the path of an artist. What you do is, you go out, you express yourself, and you know, you do all these things, and because you're such a passionate person, you never complete any artwork, and you rip them all up, and you have this, you must come to this whole name of being a tortured genius, and if you live beyond 33, you're a failure, because it's all about shooting to the stars and dying early, and you know, I mean, and the whole sort of point was supposed to be that, you know, you would leave this body of work behind that wasn't discovered till 100 years after you left, and then everyone realized that, oh my god, we didn't realize this genius that was amongst us. That was such a meme of my life, and that was spread amongst the art colleges. But the trouble with that is, and this is what I'm saying, I don't want to live in a world where Van Gogh was discovered 100 years after he's dead. I think these people should be like Sean Smith, should be not he doesn't want fame, but I want ways that I can, like I said before, it's all about is I know if I send him $20, he's going to get $20. If I send him, you know, £100, he's going to get £100. Not if I send him to Patreon, or it's finding means of getting these across. And like you said, it's signaling on a wider range, because we're such in a world at the moment where everything's just the signal you're giving us, how many hits you've had, are you an instant success? And you can probably pull the curtain behind them and tell the people what it's really like, because what people think are like, oh, well, they must be a success because look, they're in the charts at the moment and they're playing festivals. How much of that is just driven by PR, record companies, who you know? So there's no true signaling going on. So that's what I'm saying. So the Sean Smiths and the Greg Alexanders, people like yourselves, not that you want loads of money, but you kind of left adrift in this world where the only signal we've got in the world is like, how many have they sold, and are they still in arenas? And that should never be the judge of artwork, about the volume sold. That's, again, it's almost like a commercial consumer thing that almost led from this 50s idea of it's all about how numbers sold and bums put on seats idea about, and they've confused this with creativity, and it's not about that. It's about, we just want to make sure, I'm being true here, dude. I just want to know that you were saying earlier on about, you know, people, musicians who are, you know, struggling and stuff. I've known artists and friends who don't only struggle, they committed suicide because they felt there's no other way out of this stuff. And it shouldn't be like that. They didn't want fame. All we want is just to know that people are, I speak personally, I want to know that people like yourself, people that inspire me when I'm creating them, when I put your music on, you know, and it's inspired me and makes me go into flow, I want to know you're okay. That's all I want. I don't want to know that, you know, if you become famous, great. If you become successful, great. All those things are wonderful. But on the baseline, I just want to know that, hey, I'm not going to wake up tomorrow like, oh no, Paul's working in Tesco's because he's got no other way of funding this. And that to me has been my frustration in my life. And if we can just say, anyways, this is why I say to people, everybody can find solutions to this. It's great. Anything that's going to reward and keep people doing that is a great thing. And that's why my attempt at it, again, and I think it alludes to where everything is it's not about imposing a vision. It's about, okay, this is an idea. And this is one of the great things. And again, I think you can probably speak upon. I think one of the great things about being a creative person, it's that duality, is the idea of, a lot of it is, like you said before, is done in singularity, doing it by yourself. But there's that essence as well where it's collaboration, and that collaboration is a great things can happen from it. And it's one of the elements of creative people, and it's kind of, I think one of the things where we are right now, and I'll conflate this to where we, like you mentioned about what you're doing, and we're making money as an artist and making a living, is we've now can, like I say, we can do things from the bottom upwards, and we can all make mistakes together, and we can all go, okay, let's all be honest and true, but we can build and build and build, and that's what I'm saying. And that's what's really, I find really kind of inspiring with what you're saying, and I think it needs to be said more and more and more. And I think it's really kind of, you know, the times we live in. And I'm always, I get passionate about this because I just don't want to be in my 60s and thinking, oh man, we had 2 chances and we gave both of them away. But they're kind of taking this really back, and I know we've kind of really gone down the rabbit hole and kind of gone to deep, in-depth conversations. And let's take it to a level of, you know, I know many creative people, many musicians, and let's be real, I know many musicians right now who are at that kind of level where, you know, they're you know, it's not just you know, a little kind of a hobby anymore. They've actually gone out, played gigs. You know, they maybe get to their first or even maybe their second album and physical copy, but they've done it all themselves and stuff like that. What would be for you, who's been down that path, and like you said before, you've been fortunate enough to play the stadiums and stuff like that. What would be the lessons, or what would be the advice you give to someone they've got to that level where they're breaking through, they're reaching outside their cities, they're getting. But what would be the advice and the tips you would give those people at that level of how to sort of take it to the next sort of level, so they can actually go, okay, there's a progression there. What would be your top sort of advice and lessons you think you've learned?
Step number 1 is build an email list. That's 100% absolute non-negotiable. Build an email list and use that as a way of constantly being in touch with people that come to your gigs. I wish that I'd have done it years and years and years ago. I've only started doing it in the last 5 years, you know, and if I'd have done it 15 years ago, I may have been in a slightly different position now. I may not have been, but, you know, looking at it, I really wish I'd have done, and I've been more creative with that as well, you know. So yeah, definitely build that email list and then use that as a way to be always in touch with people that support your music. So when you do a gig, put, you know, even if it's an iPad, get an iPad on your merch table. Merch is another thing I'll get to, but get an iPad on your merch table so people can tap in their details, you know, and then you save their email address, and then you've got them to always be in communication with. You know, if you don't have communication with those that like you, they'll forget about you. Doesn't matter how good you are, or if they've come to a gig and they loved it and they bought your CD on the night, whatever. You know, if you don't keep up that communication, then you'll just kind of fizzle out, unless they're absolutely real diehards, you know, and they'll keep communicating with you, you know, which does happen, obviously, you know. But for the majority of people, you've got to keep reminding them that you're there in some way. So that's another thing. Merchandise is a big thing. Got to get that right, you know. Get the shop looking nice when you do a gig. It's got to be, you know, and have someone in the shop that's friendly, you know, not some dude that just, you know, doesn't have a personality. Get someone with a nice personality, or younger female, you know, preferably a young female with a good flirty personality, you know, and to draw people in, you know, and that's absolutely essential. And get a hang of your social media, your Twitter, your Facebook. Get a handle on that as quick as you can, because likes and shares and tweets can be extremely deceiving, you know, and I mean deceiving as in a positive way towards the band or the artist, you know, because we live in an age, as you know, we discussed earlier, where everything's based on how much likes you've got or perceived popularity. Personally, I think it's all a load of bollocks, you know, but that's what people judge as being successful. So if you're perceived to be more successful than you are, then more people are going to get caught up in your kind of pretend slipstream, as it were, you know. So definitely get a handle on that. And if you're doing it all yourself, great, you know, absolutely. Don't get a manager unless you get a really, really good one that knows what they're doing. Because, you know, I mean, Coast has been down that road, and we've been struck with that, which has been really, really bad, you know, which ultimately led to a lot of bad decisions being made and people having to leave and stuff like that, people being bullied out of the band by management and stuff. So you don't want to go down that road. If you can keep it in-house without bringing someone else in, great, do it that way as well. But that's probably my main things at the moment, to be honest with you. And at the same time as well, if you are in day jobs, yeah, you make that work to a degree, but at some point you're going to have to make a leap of faith. You are going to have to think, okay, this is serious now. And yeah, you can go out and do gigs, and you might earn enough money to pay for your extension or your conservatory, whatever. But if you want to make it a real career move, then you need, if you're married or you're living with someone, you need a partner that's behind you 100%. And you need to really go for it, put timelines on things as well. In 2 years, we want to be out playing 4 countries in Europe, regularly every year. Put timeline things all the time. Always do that, because you can easily get lazy. And there's normally, within a band situation, there's normally one person that's really driving the whole thing. It normally comes down to one person. So if that's the way it is, then learn how to delegate, learn how to get jobs between everyone, play to everybody's strength. If you've got a guy that's good on the internet, get him to do the internet stuff, but ultimately work together on your stuff, and getting the word out there, not just leave it down to one person putting up the tweets and the posts. Just everyone share your videos and give it a team effort, because people believe in team efforts rather than sole efforts ultimately, just with my opinion anyway,
No, I completely concur, my friend. I don't know. I mean, I could speak about this for a long, long time, because I know bands who are completely. I mean, there's a band I know called Gleewood, and they're from from New Mexico, and they're playing Sweden right now, dude. And they're just a couple. They've just gone out, and they've taken that very approach. And they lived it literally. As a couple, they thought, right, we love our music. This is what we're doing it for. Bought themselves a house, a mobile house, and just drove around playing in the States. And now they've gone over, and it's all about doing that, which again, it's almost again, I don't want to sort of look at it, but it's almost kind of been, again, a cultural thing where back in the day, man, that was when I'm not being funny, but when I was in a band back in the 90s, that was almost part of the progression route. You thought, okay, at some point we have to get a dirty old van, we have to go and play some dirty old pubs and do it the old school way, man. Maybe because I was a bit of a metal boy, but that was the kind of that was exactly how the mantra went. You went out, you played dirty gigs, you built up your audience.
That's how we do it.
Exactly, step by step by step. But like I say, that's almost been thrown out with the bathwater in this culture now, where it's like we've been talking about all night. It's all instant success, and people think they can just turn up and play, a 1,500 arena, and it's just going to happen overnight. And it's not. It's about putting the dirty graft in, man. And I think that's one element of it. And I think the other element, again, let's be real, this is one of the more to particularly creative people, man, and I can speak upon this, man. I mean, one of the hardest things, again, it's been a driving part I'm trying to do with N99 is, I think one of the difficult things is for us to be creative is both elements. Is us putting our heads above the parapet and trying to put some networking out, and then when you do it, trying to get creative people in to do anything. In some ways, and I use this term, and it's like herding cats. And mate, it's the most. So that's why I put one of my main drives behind what I think. Okay, what we really need, one of the greatest tools that could be given to creative people, would be just a place that they could go and go. Can we just all have the ability just to talk? Because at the moment, dude, we're so. It's hard enough, man. I mean, you've spoken about about what you did, the step-by-step process, but the element of networking is so hard in the world we live in, because there's so many platforms, and each of them has almost got the elements that you like. So I like people like, okay, some people are stuck completely on Twitter, some people are stuck on Instagram, some people will mix between the two, some people are on Twitter, some people are on and before you know it, you're like someone like, particularly me, or if you're trying to network, you've got about 18 different platforms you have to speak to people through. So if we could just have one place. Because to get creative people to get to talk or to collaborate, it's so hard as it is. So I mean, it's one of the things. Again, it's one of the the unspoken elements that, you know, I mean, it's hard enough to be creative anyway, but it's kind of like the day job of it, or the element that nobody sees is like, you know, like they, you know, like they say, people see the, you know, you up on stage and think, oh, it's all life of a musician, must be great. You just up there with people adoring you. But one of the great, as I'm saying, the dirty side of the elements we talk about is it's like I say, and it's really hard for creative people is to go out and network and hard. And it is hard for us, man, because like you said, dude, if I was in almost a paradise, in a perfect world, I'll be quite happy just being left alone, painting, playing music all day by myself, every day of my life. It takes the discipline, and that's what it is, man. And there's a discipline to being creative. It isn't all this just, oh, you can just self-express, man. It's a warrior path. You gotta do things. You think, okay, it's hard for me, man. You gotta step up and network. And these are things that are the truths again that creative people don't want to hear, because they want to go, oh, that's why they get managers. That's why all this. Dude, it's the element. I'm not going to be metaphysical on this, but it's like every time you go and you think, okay, I'm going to get a band as a manager. We're going to go and get a PR person. These are just basically you selling little bits of your soul because you're lazy, and you should actually do it yourself. And it's because it's a disciplined path. But we're all, as creative people, go, oh no, I don't want to be disciplined. I just want to get all the lazy thing. But the truth is, you've got to be doing a lot of this hard work yourself, man. And it needs to be, again, because like that's what you mentioned about me. You don't just get to go and play, you know, the things you want to do without having some sort of element of stepping out and talking to creative people. But as you know, man, I'm just be real. Getting creative people together, like I say, is like I say, herding cats.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, with like having the manager and stuff, I won't go too much into it, but like one of the reasons that I've had to fuck my ideas up and do all this stuff myself and learn how to do it all, you know, is because I had a really bad manager, you know, who was costing the band money, who was stopping the band from getting gigs, and you know, it was a really, really bad. I mean, I was also signed to a contract with him for 5 years, so I couldn't go with another manager either, you know. So it was really, really awful, you know. And like, so in the end, I had to kind of take over and just do stuff myself. I think, well, nobody else is, you know, the manager's not doing anything. Nobody can get hold of him. Nobody, you know, promoters are getting really angry because he doesn't reply to calls and he's lazy and this and that. So in the end, you have to do stuff yourself, you know, and that's basically kind of one of the things that helped me to really learn about all this stuff, because, you know, he didn't have a clue. He had no idea what to do, you know. He just liked the title of being called a manager, and it was it's one of those things, you know. So unless you really, really have to, I wouldn't go down that path. I'd advise people against going down the managerial route. Manage yourself, you know. Manage yourself. Yeah.
Completely, my friend. I again, because I think this is, again, with everything, I think it's as much as you can stay in control of anything you're doing as in life generally. This is not even make this about creativity or music or anything. It's just as much as you can stay in control of everything you've got, the better you're going to be. Because, as you said, if not, you're relying on somebody else. And I've always said on quite a deep level, man. I don't want to get into the deep conversation, but I think you've got to be strong-minded in this life, because life isn't, you know, life, it's like, what's the old quote, you know, nature's, you know, red and claw, and that's what it is like, you know. This we've got, what, you know, this isn't a you know, it's one of the things about creative people particularly, man. I mean, I as an artist, and you know, it's we're there ultimately to sort of tell people, like, hey, this isn't all going to last forever. We're you know, mortality is surrounds us everywhere. Everywhere is around us is decay. So hence the reason you've got to make as most of what you've got while you can, because it's not going to be here forever. And that's the role of the creative people throughout history. That's why many cultures have always held, like the Greeks and the Romans, and you go through all throughout history, they've always held the creative people up, because they're the reminder. They're the mirror to all the follies of the emperors and the you know, whatever the name of the time may be. You know, the artist is always there to hold the mirror, and the musician. That's why culture has always held them up as that, because we as a species, we require the yin and the yang, and I think that's the very process. Now, one of the things then again, I you know, we'll sort of wrap this conversation up. And really, we talked about, you know, the sort of avenues of where things are going and how to make money and how to make a living and what the elements and tools. One of the things I think is going to be fascinating, and I was thinking about this just recently, and I think it's something you alluded to earlier on about. We've also very similar, and there's a synergy between what we do. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like I say, I'll particularly listen to piano music. And I've said this over and over again, and I think I like to listen to it because it has no words in it, and I can go with the flow, and it's it's like almost it's like a sportsman would go to a massage or a masseur before, and it's exactly the same way. It loosens up, and then it's taken along the element, and that's. And like I said, we have very much similarities about how all that works. I look forward to the day. I mean, I don't think right now with these current tools, but maybe we, you know, like I said before, we've kind of been the theme of this conversation. We're in the process of building and beta phasing things, and we're just kind of swimming in the murky waters or prodding into the dark with sticks and that and new world. But I would love to day, you know, whether in person, but even more so maybe with technology, where we could have just a day, maybe me and you, where you could be playing piano and create what you're doing, and I would be creating an artwork, and just through the day we just create something together from two elements of just two disparate kind of creative people kind of bouncing off each other. I think these are going to be. These kind of ideas are things that's what I'm saying. They don't sit around in Spotify or on the BBC and think about. But these are the ideas which I really like, and really I think, great. We've got the tools.
Yep.
Okay, let's do these things, because I think, and I think this could be the flourishing. This is where I personally think we are, my friend, right now. I think that. And I have so many conversations when people say to me, "Oh man," but the whole of it's all just you know, the whole like kind of what we've kind of touched upon about the whole music industry and the arts and the world. It's just all this big dry desolate plain of you know, just nothingness. You know what I mean? And I just think right now, I think okay, the clouds are coming, and you know it's starting to and the raindrops are starting to fall. These, like we've spoken upon, the steps where we can take these processes back, you know, where we can do these things. The rain is starting to come, and I think like anything else, and you know, like in nature itself, and you can have deserts that are, you know, completely desolate for years and years and years. One rainstorm, you go back a week later, and it's like, whoa, where did all these flowers come from? Where did this bush come from? And nature just springs out of the most desolate places. And this is where I think we are right now. I think we really are at this point where we're going to see a whole new flourishing, because I don't think creativity is something I said earlier on. I don't think we're any different from what we were 20 years ago. I still think we're very creative. I personally see so much creativity in this world that's just not seen. And we know people go to me, oh, TV's rubbish, X Factor's rubbish. I'm like, well, you're watching the wrong things. There's so much going on right now. There's so much creativity, and this is where I think where we are right now. We're not going to be, as it has before, always reliant on big other people to come along and almost like walk through the desert and go, oh, I'm going to show you this flower, and because I'm such an important person, I'm going to make a highlight. No, the difference now is we can all just run around in the desert. We can all see the flowers. We can all participate. We can all, and that's the renaissance I speak about. Like never before. We don't have to rely on these middlemen. We have to go through all that, and it's beautiful, man. I mean, that's why I sort of say, and that's why I never try to sort of get too. When people get really doomy about everything and think we're all just going to hell in a handcart, I think no, man. I think the other way around. I think we're on the brink, on the verge of an absolute renaissance in music and arts and everything else, because this is because where we are, and we're fortunate. We're going to be very fortunate. I kind of want to wrap this up on this, dude. We're old enough to remember. I was contemplating, really think about this week. We're old enough to remember when, like, for instance, when I first got my car, if it got to 100,000 miles, that was it, done. I remember the world having to go to a phone box and ring my girlfriend. Done. You know, we've got now kids that have just grown up on iPads. You talk about we're fortunate, man, and we're lucky that we've got the kind of the cognitive know-how to have an understanding of that whole world for such, and have the ability to play with these new ones. Like we're in that very very, very fortunate position, man. I mean, particularly our generation. It's not the millennials don't get it because they've just grown up with it. They don't know anything different. My son's 26. I discuss this all the time, and he's like, "Oh yeah," and dude, I know. I've watched your life. You grew up when you literally there was no internet, and now all you know is just the internet, and you just don't know anything other than that. So that's what I'm trying to say, man. I think that's what I'm saying. I think that's what I mentioned. I think we do live in the greatest of days right now, and I think it's. Maybe that's why it's fallen on the shoulders of people in my generation where we are, man. Because I think, like no one else, we've got an insight into both worlds, which maybe gives us a bit of an edge in this new world as we do right now. Because we kind of can see, like, yeah, I'm old enough to remember I've seen bubbles rise and I've seen things fall, I've seen things collapse, but you know. And I think that's one of the things that's great about where we are. Dude. I say that in a roundabout way, man. Because what I'm trying to say is, I look forward to the day when, like I say, in person or like I say, in this kind of new virtual way, we can do some sort of collaboration over a day process. And because that's ultimately, dude, that's what it's all about. It's not about making money, being fame, playing, and it's all about just the joy of doing what it is, being creative, and that's. Like I said before, creation inspires creation. Music inspires art, and that's what that's what I look forward to today. I really do.
No, that's a great idea, actually, too. I'll be well up for that. Yeah, see if we can find some way of doing it, like say, either in person, where we can just set up a couple of cameras, film the whole thing as well, because that would be really good, or over the internet. But I think that's a great concept for something. I think people would like to see that as well. You know, that would be really, really good. Yeah, well up for that. Oops, lost you for a minute there.
Yeah, sorry, man. I completely lost you for the last 30 seconds, man. Sorry. Do you mind repeating what you just said, man? I just lost you completely.
No worries. No. I'd love the idea of doing that, where if I'm playing some music and you're painting, so we're just kind of feeding off. I watch what you're doing, so I change how I play. You listen to what I'm doing, and you change how you paint. And I think that'll be a great, you know, a new way of expressing. Well, not a new way, but you know, just I think people would like to see that, actually. So we can either do that either in person or, like say, over the internet by using, you know, modern wizardry. Well, I think we should set that up. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I like that idea, man, because I think what I think is the most beautiful thing about this is what I love about creativity completely, because like I say, the whole process, you'll walk into something, and the bottom line is that we're going to end up with something that none of us will that beginning of that process will even know what it's about. And that's the idea that us as human beings can manifest an intent from inside our minds, that we can think about something and just do this. That to me is the most amazing. All this world we learn about, we're supposed to be, Star Trek is so amazing, or this latest CGI, and I'm like, this is the most amazing thing ever. That us as human beings that process that we can, like I say, two human beings can get together and inspire each other and have something that none of us thought at the beginning, or knew what the end outcome would be, and then we've produced something that can be left as a legacy. If people get upset about life or get depressed about life, just think about that, and then you think, well, wait a minute, what am I doing with my life, man?
No, totally. No, there's something in that. We'll explore that, and let's get that off the ground, because I think that's a really cool concept, actually, and maybe something we can make a regular thing of,
Oh well, man, I would be up for that. I'll be up for that 100%. So, dude, well, look, man, it's been, as always, doing a kind of an illuminating conversation, man. And again, I'm always it's been really good. And I hope, if anything else, it's inspires some thought process all around, because as with me, man, because I think, like I said, and I think the thing my takeaway from this personally will be, it's all about, as you said, using the tools we've got right now together and jumping in. I think that's my takeaway of this conversation. Really, it's about, as you said, you know, you've got your coast tribe. It's all about all jumping in, enjoying life, taking part in this, not just being a passenger, and actually, you know, like you said, dissolving the barriers between, you know, us as creators. We're not super gods. We weren't, you know, sent from high, you know, to be having our little short period of, no, we're just human beings. We do the same, we have all the same stresses, the same worries, the same, we're just flesh and blood like everybody else, and dissolving those barriers and like I say, and having that connection, I think so can only be a great thing. And I think that's going to be my takeaway of this conversation, man. I want to finish as I always do, man, because I feel I always want to play a piece of your music. So I want to finish that with Phil, man. So again, I ask you this every time we speak, and I think it's very relevant to the conversation we had tonight. What was the inspiration behind this track? And so while I'm queuing up, and as ever, man, thank you for your time, man.
I wrote that track for my now wife. So yeah, inspired by my missus. Write that track. So yeah, just in the early days when we were kind of dating and stuff, and it was kind of my way of telling her my feelings. So I wrote that for my wife.